Coming up on No Pulp, how each of the 4 college football playoff teams got to the playoff.
Talk about those 4 teams. We'll talk the Heisman Trophy was announced yesterday, and also top 10 plays of the year.
There's a whole lot to come here on No Pulp. Jack Gordon is joining us, breaking down some under-the-radar bowl games, maybe that you won't see on New Year's Day.
That'll be a lot of fun. We'll also predict the playoff games. We'll name our national champion. We'll have to get to it. It'll be great.
All that and more coming up right here on No Pulp.
Kansas State has been on fire this year.
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was proved
They're not going to fire him. He's the best player in program history.
Side to Lawrence for the win. Yes, he got it.
He is the Shohei Ohtani of college softball.
This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country.
How you feeling?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
LSU has captured its very first national championship.
Welcome into No Pulp. Ethan Frank alongside Braden Reed for an hour of breaking down everything going on in the world of college football ahead of bowl season. How are you doing?
I'm excited. It's bowl season. You said it. We got playoff games. My Horns are in the playoff. I'm very excited about it. Love Quinn Ewers. We'll talk about that. I'm looking forward to it.
Your Horns. Okay. I guess we'll have to get into that. We'll start with Michigan, the number 1 team in all the land, undefeated, 13-0, winners of the Big Ten for the 3rd consecutive year. And after getting into the playoff, here's what Jim Harbaugh had to say after he was suspended the final 3 regular season games, but came back to coach the Wolverines in the Big Ten championship game.
I want to say this. I mean, you talk about some of the, it's a galvanized team. And, some may think it's galvanized by adversity. It's not. It's galvanized by choice.
What does that mean, Jim? What is he talking about?
I have no idea. The players united after a suspension. They kept the season going well. They continued to roll. They had a tough stretch to end the season, though. They started out the beginning of the year through the non-conference schedule. They were dominating teams. They were the best scoring defense in the entire country all season long. But you go down some of these teams, East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, not a lot of great teams. They didn't allow a lot of points, though. But then the offense kind of struggled through the Big Ten schedule. J.J. McCarthy wasn't great. Only 60 yards against Penn State. No touchdowns. Only 141 yards in a pick against Maryland. Wasn't great against Ohio State and Iowa either. They haven't been asking him to do a ton. They've kind of been leaning on Blake Corum and the running game and on the defensive side of the ball. This Michigan team is very good, deservedly so. Big Ten champions, the number 1 team in all the land, like you said. I do have questions on if J.J. McCarthy can go out and win this Wolverines team a game if he needs to in the playoffs.
I mean, there are just so many questions I have. Who did this team really beat besides Ohio State and Penn State?
And who did they beat besides 2 of the top 10 teams in the country?
Okay, but how good is the Big Ten?
The Big Ten's pretty good. Like I just said, it has 3 top 10 teams.
Okay, but
Iowa's even a good team, too.
You say that, they're top 10 teams, but who did they beat?
I just told you they beat 3 top 25 teams in the conference.
I feel like those are arbitrary rankings.
Look, I know you have issues with Penn State. I know you have issues with Ohio State, but objectively, they are 2 of the 10 best teams in the entire country. They both have incredible defenses. Michigan able to lean on Blake Corum, who's been fantastic coming off an injury for them. I understand, but what do you want them to do? They beat
Penn State is the most unserious program in all of college football.
That's Penn State.
Ohio State's starting quarterback no longer plays for the Buckeyes as they head into a New Year's Six bowl. I am really unsure of what to make of the Big Ten, and I'm not sure the Big Ten was a top 3 conference in college football this year.
I think that's a strong take. Like I said, I don't know what you want out of Michigan. They're an incredible team. They beat who's in front of them. I want to talk about the Jim Harbaugh suspension a little bit, though. The team, it felt like, rallied around him. That could have been something
they're galvanized by choice.
I guess, right? That could have been something that completely derailed their season, but they stayed true to themselves. If you watch the interview with Sandra Still, Blake Corum, and J.J. McCarthy, they said, we gather around each other. We kept going. I have a question for you, though. John Dale's famously said on this program, the only thing Jim Harbaugh's good for is getting his pants pulled down on national television. After this, 13-0 Michigan, number 1 team in all the land, do you think he's beating those allegations?
Do I think Jim Harbaugh is beating those allegations?
Of being a fraud?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It really is a who could say.
It feels like your answer is no.
It really is a who could say situation because I feel like until they win a playoff game, we don't know. I guess my question for you is this the best chance Michigan has had to win it all in now the 3rd year in a row they've been in the playoff?
I think so, right? It has to be. I think this is the best their offense has looked. Their defense is the best in the entire country. That's what they're going to have to lean on against Alabama. But like I said, I just have serious questions about whether J.J. McCarthy is going to be able to go out and beat the Alabama defense. I know we'll get into that matchup a little bit later, but Michigan's been fantastic all year.
Yeah, they've been good. We'll see what happens.
All right, well, we're going to transition to the number 2 team in all the land now. The Washington Huskies. Second-year coach Kalen DeBoer had this to say about the Huskies making the playoff this year.
Enjoying the competition, being in the moment, enjoying the challenge, the opportunity that you have. Win or go home. There's something different about it than knowing, hey, you're going to go to a bowl game. And that's where we're at now.
Really good stuff from Kalen DeBoer. He's taken this team and really turned them around. They were in the playoff a couple of years ago, almost a decade, I guess. At this
2016.
Point. Yeah, it wasn't good. They got blown out in that game. But this Washington team feels a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, the first thing I wrote down, this is just a team that knows how to win football games.
I was going to say the same thing.
6-0 in one-score games on their way to a 13-0 overall record. This is a team that finds a way to win. I know, Braden, I know you're a team that you're a guy that loves the Philadelphia Eagles. I think people would say about the Philadelphia Eagles this year, that's just a team that finds a way to win ball games. They know ball. Washington and Kalen DeBoer, they know ball. They're the only team in the playoff that had a Heisman finalist, and we'll talk about that later with Michael Penix. And when you've got a receiver on the outside like Rome Odunze, who can win one-on-one or down the field against any secondary in the country, as we saw throughout this entire season, I don't know if there's a better coach team in the country in close games like we saw from Washington this year.
I would have to agree with you. It was the first thing that I wrote down. Winning close games is almost a skill, I think. Our good friend Ben Spector loves to say it. Good teams just find a way to win games, and Washington has absolutely done that this year. There's nothing gaudy about this team, right? They don't blow you out of the water. Michael Penix has been fantastic, but they're just a top 15 offense. Defense isn't even in the top 50. But Washington is just so good, like you said, at finding ways to win games. The 2 Oregon wins, right? Going into that Pac-12 championship, I remember the narrative was Oregon's been blowing teams out. I think they're beating teams by an average of 24 or so points heading into that game. But Washington just does it. It's absolutely a skill, like I said. When you find that way to make a play down the stretch. Guys like Penix, guys like Odunze, when it's crunch time, when the Huskies offense needs a score, the defense needs to get off the field, this Washington team just finds a way to get it done. It's really impressive.
So I got an interesting question for you along that.
Sure.
Washington, Kalen DeBoer, second, he was the head coach at Fresno State before he was the head coach at Washington.
Only been a head coach for 4 years.
This is a guy that comes from very low levels of football. Yep. Is Washington playing with house money in the college football playoff?
How can you say that? How can you say that? No, I think the expectations were incredibly high this year with Odunze and Penix, like we've been talking about. So I don't think you can call it house money.
Why?
What do you mean why? I just answered your question.
I need a why.
Well, what is house money in the college football playoff? You're there. The expectations are high. You had a Heisman finalist.
You weren't supposed to be here. You're the number 2 team, and you're an underdog to Texas.
I feel like we knew that Penix was going to be a Heisman candidate coming into the season. The expectations were going to be high. I think absolutely they exceeded expectations, but I still don't think you can say they're playing with house money. It'll be interesting to see, it'll be interesting to see how they transition out of the Penix era and into the post-Penix era, for lack of a better word. What they'll do after he moves on to the NFL, what they'll do at quarterback, what they do with Odunze too. It'll be interesting to see, but I don't think you can say they're playing with house money.
No, and I agree with you. It's just, I feel like when you're in this position where you weren't expected to be here, and then as a higher seed, as an undefeated team,
if someone
you're an
says to you
underdog.
Washington wins the Pac-12 and makes the playoff, does that really surprise you?
Yeah.
Would that have surprised you?
It would have surprised me, yes.
Interesting. I just don't feel the same
going
way.
into what? Going into the first game they played against Oregon, they were the lower ranked team. They were an underdog at home. And then going into the Pac-12 championship game, they were nearly a 10-point underdog.
They were doubted. They were absolutely doubted. But I think now you're here. You got to win the game. House money. Throw it out the window.
All right. We talked about the number 3 team in the country a little bit. Texas. I know they're your Longhorns. Braden, Steve Sarkisian, former offensive coordinator at Alabama, was pretty excited and had a lot to say after the Longhorns got selected to the playoff for the first time.
Obviously we were watching the Bama-Georgia game, and the bus is going crazy.
Alabama OC.
And then you get home, and I'm tuned in to the Florida State-Louisville game and the Michigan-Iowa game, and then those kind of settled down, and that game ended. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to get in bed, and I'm going to try to shut it down here for the night. And I couldn't sleep.
There are often nights I can't sleep when I'm really excited about things. So when it comes to Texas, what did you see this year that was most impressive?
I think it was just the consistency. Even though Quinn Ewers missed 2 games middle of the season, he certainly took a step forward. Xavier Worthy was fantastic out wide for them, and especially on the offensive and defensive lines, because we'll talk about the playoff later. This is where they're either going to win or lose in the trenches. Texas has always historically had great offensive lines. On the defensive line, though, they haven't been as great. They were starting to highly recruit guys, but the whole bit about the Big 12 defense not being anything special, that held true, but not so much this year. Texas's defense has won them some games. They give up 24 to Alabama, 6 to Baylor, 14 to Kansas, Oklahoma. We're not going to talk about Oklahoma. But BYU as well.
What do you mean you're not going to talk about Oklahoma?
It was too far. It was too far back. No, that was.
Oh, it was too far back. Okay, then is the Texas's win over Alabama that we're showing right now, is that too far back?
I don't think so.
So it's rules for thee, but not for me.
That Texas win against Alabama was the best one in all of the country this year. My point being is that historically Texas's defense has not been able to win them games, and it's especially true with Sarkisian. Like you said, coach at Alabama, he's an offensive mind. You're going to need. Quinn Ewers wasn't good enough to, be consistent, go out there, win them every single game. Eventually, you're going to need your defense to win you some games. And the great thing about Texas this year was that their defense was able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you see the numbers, 13th ranked defense in college football, only allowing under 18 points per game. It was really impressive. And I think the impressive thing is how quickly Sark is developing and recruiting talent. And it's easy. I don't know if it's easy, but it is not that difficult to recruit talent to a place like Texas. You think about how much talent comes from the state, and to keep that in-house and build a roster the way that he has and kind of develop this talent over a long portion of time is really, really impressive. So going back to this Alabama game in week 2, they played in Austin last year.
Are you willing to say it was the best win in college football this year?
No, I'm not willing to say that.
What was then?
I think you could go a lot of different ways.
It's a win against the playoff team on the road in one of the most hostile environments in all of college football. How was it not the best win?
Are there
any that off the top of your head that you would put ahead of it?
Alabama's win over Georgia, I think, is arguable, considering the location being in Georgia against the number 1 team in the country. That's not really that neutral of a site. It's an hour from Athens. I guess my question is, should teams play these type of games where they're going and playing true road games in the non-conference against other power schools?
I think so. It's good for college football. And I know with all the realignment, it's going to look a lot different. So we're going to get a lot more of these good games. Like, it's really cool before the expansion if USC were to go play Ohio State. They should keep those games, absolutely. Like, they should have if they did a Big Ten SEC challenge like they did with basketball, I think that'd be really, really cool. But they should continue to do it. It's good for the game, and it gives you matchups like this. I'm a little bit biased because I was on Texas early this year and was pulling for them, but I genuinely think that was one of the most fun games to watch this entire season.
Yeah, it was fun. I guess just what is the incentive for a team, though, if they were to lose that game?
That's fair. You have to weigh it, I think, because if you go out there and win the game, to counter your point about if you lose it, it's a huge stain on your schedule, but it's not even that big of a stain if it's a team like Alabama. But if you're Texas here, you go on the road and win that game, and now you get to the point to that when it comes playoff time. Obviously,
but I guess the counterpoint is, okay, Alabama loses at home to Texas.
Sure.
That means they can't lose again.
Yeah.
They can't lose. There's no margin for error. And we'll get to a little bit later, Jalen Milroe's pass to beat Auburn. If that doesn't happen, even if Alabama beats Georgia with 2 losses, they're not getting in the playoff.
Let me ask you this. If it was just like a ho-hum game, if it was like Chattanooga that Texas plays in week 2, they win that game, do you think they still make it as a 12-1 Big 12 champion, even without the Alabama win? That's when I think it gets tough.
No, because what do you look at on their resume and say they did?
I'm
arguing from the Alabama side of the team that loses the game.
I got you. No, I still think to the overall point, though, Alabama specifically, maybe. But to the overall point, you look at a team like Texas this year, that was the definitive win that they pointed to when they're making the case for the college football playoff. Because, like we said, it's a top 2, if you want to argue it, win in the entire country this season. So I think it should incentivize teams to continue to play those games, because that's the kind of stuff that matters when the committee is looking at, the big wins, the top 25 wins. Something like that would really propel your case.
And next year, Texas-Alabama will be an SEC game.
You'll look forward to it. So we talked about Alabama a lot there, just talking with Texas a little bit. Here's what Nick Saban had to say about the whole FSU-Alabama debacle. Career politician Nick Saban.
It's unfortunate that some good team had to get left out, but I really think that our team earned the right to be here. He beat number 1 Georgia in the SEC championship game. They've worked hard all year to improve, and I'm really proud of what they've been able to accomplish together as a team.
Nick, you're in the playoff. Why do you feel like you still need to be campaigning? Remember last year when he got on national television during one of the playoff games and said, Alabama was one of the 4 best teams? Nick, it's not about the 4 best teams. It's about the most deserving teams, the most qualified teams. I won't go off on a tangent. I'm sure we could talk for a while about the whole Alabama-Florida State.
He sounds like our good friend John Dale's favorite politician, John Fetterman.
I mean, you can't say that. But Nick Saban, of course, a career politician, always feels like he needs to campaign for his team. But talking about Alabama a little bit more in depth about their season so far, you know what I felt like it was a little bit?
What did you feel like it was?
I felt like it was a little bit of a ping pong game. You know, you want to play a little ping pong with me, whack it back and forth.
Yep.
They had great games. They had dominant wins, convincing wins against Tennessee, LSU, and then they struggle with teams like Auburn and Arkansas. So the huge question for me, you know, when we're talking about the playoff and looking ahead to their matchup, is which version of this Alabama team are we going to get, and more specifically, which version of Jalen Milroe are we going to get?
Because I feel like this is a team that's playing their best football right now, and you know maybe you wouldn't have said that after the Auburn game, but you definitely have to say it after the Georgia game, and that's why Georgia went into that game only a 5.5-point favorite.
It was close.
Being closer to Georgia
I
than it
don't
is
know how
Alabama. So my question for you,
Sure.
this is similar to the Big Ten. How good actually was the SEC this year? Because I'm not convinced the SEC was that good.
I think it was good.
They lost.
It wasn't.
Texas A&M lost to Miami. LSU lost to Florida
Sure.
State convincingly. Are we sure the SEC was that good this year? And a big win over Tennessee or a big win over whoever LSU means something?
Sure. I guess I would turn around and ask you a different question with that. Like, which conference did you like more?
The Pac-12.
The Pac-12. Any others? Like, if the SEC's the second best conference in college football, so be it. It was definitely a down year. I would agree with that. I think this is probably the worst Alabama team in the past decade? Like, it just doesn't feel as solid as it has in some of the past. And like, I don't know how you can say that the Alabama's playing their best ball of the year. Georgia win, absolutely incredible, one of the 2 or 3 best wins in college football this season, but they almost lost to Auburn, who's struggling through that game.
Okay, maybe it's not they're playing their best ball. I think Jalen Milroe is playing his best football.
I think so. I think that's fair, and you're always going to have the defense with Nick Saban. Milroe's made a lot of plays, but the Auburn play was a prayer, and maybe it's just they're not asking him to do as much anymore for Alabama. They have a great group of pass catchers out there too. Their defense is so great, but don't forget, like, this is a guy who got benched against USF way back in the 3rd game of the season. So I guess, like, yes, he's trending up, but I still have questions. Like, they're getting Michigan. That's the best defense in the entire country. Mike Sanders still is one of the best corners in the entire country. Is Jalen Milroe really going to be able to perform against that kind of defense?
I don't know. I mean, you look at the Alabama quarterbacks of the playoff era.
Oh, I'm familiar.
Bryce Young.
Yep.
Mac Jones.
Yep.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Keep going.
Jalen Hurts.
Love it.
Like, if you think about those, those quarterbacks, you don't think he compares to them?
I don't think so. Do you? Like, which one of those guys would you rather have Jalen Milroe in an Alabama uniform over?
I mean, maybe after what we've seen from Bryce Young.
Maybe Mac Jones, but Mac Jones still ran that offense. He got the ball to the guys he needed to.
Mac Jones won Devontae Smith the Heisman Trophy.
He didn't win Devontae Smith the Heisman Trophy. Devontae Smith won the Heisman Trophy for Devontae Smith.
Right.
Please.
Okay, we won't get into that.
Before I get off.
There's a whole lot more to come here still on No Pulp. We're breaking down the top 10 plays of the college football regular season, and the Heisman was announced this weekend. I wonder who won. We'll have a report on the ground to find out. Stay with us here on No Pulp.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Ethan, Frank, Braden Reed, breaking down what we've seen so far in college football in 2023 and still a whole lot more to come here in bowl season. When you look at the top plays we saw this year, I mean, we had to dig through thousands of them.
Shout out our producer team for going through pretty much every single play of college football season.
Any that come to mind that you're hoping to see in this top 10?
You know what? We just talked about Jalen Milroe. I'm sure that's going to be in there. One that I am excited about, Quinn Ewers' go-ahead touchdown against Alabama. I have a feeling that'll be in there. I'm excited to see it.
All right, let's take a look, starting with number 10, the top 10 plays of the year in college football. A guy who we talked about the Heisman. He was at the Heisman ceremony near one of the top
Kyle
four.
McCord?
No, not Kyle McCord. That'd be Marvin Harrison Jr., son of the great Marvin Harrison. And even though his back was hurting after that, an incredible catch. I mean, the body control on this guy, unbelievable. He'll probably be a top 5 pick in April's NFL draft.
To get the foot back in bounds on there with the guy pretty much grabbing his face mask too, honestly unbelievable. You say body control, he'll be one of the first 5 picks off the board, and you see that is why right there. But on number 9 play, we're going down to Tuscaloosa. We talked about it.
I feel like you had an inkling.
The Longhorns, Quinn Ewers, looking to ice the game against Alabama late. Deep ball to Adonai Mitchell. The game is put away. It's on ice. Longhorns leave Tuscaloosa with the win. Quinn Ewers, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns in that game. Texas wins it by 10, and I think the best win in college football this year.
Basically said Baruch Atah Adonai in the air as that ball was coming down. And it was, I mean, this was a terrific throw from Quinn Ewers as we move on to number 8, Washington. An 89-yard pick 6 here. Down by 1 to Arizona State. Michelle Powell. I mean, are you kidding me?
That's a long way to run.
That is
You'd be out of gas by the time you got to the end zone. I know that for a fact. Washington defense comes up big late in the game. We talked about it. They needed a stop. They got it right there.
I mean, we talked Washington's ability in close games to come up with the big plays it needed to. That was early in the season, too.
It was. And the number 7 play, we're going to go to a great quarterback here. Drake May with a left-handed shot put throw. You see that. You think Patrick Mahomes. You think Josh Allen. He's going to be drafted as high come this April as those two guys were. Kobe Paysor catches it for the touchdown. But, I mean, stiff-arming a guy, giving him the Heisman, and then just chucking the ball like it's a little, what's that thing called? The trebuchet?
Yeah.
Throws it into the end zone, somehow finds Kobe Paysor. Truly unbelievable.
A really, really impressive play. All right, we're getting close to the top 5, but we'll go with number 6 here first. Don't try this at home, folks. Timmy McClain. I mean, first of all, what is he doing?
Looks like me and Madden.
What is he doing?
He's still going back there. Back in his own end zone.
This ended up being needing 5 yards on 4th and 5, and it was a 35-yard pass.
That's like two PPR fantasy points. You gotta love to see that. Moving on to our number 5 play. This game apparently didn't mean anything because Ohio State's a fake team, but we have the game, Michigan and Ohio State. Late in this one, the interception from Rod Moore to seal it for Michigan. They hang on and win the game 30-24, but like I said, according to Ethan, Ohio State isn't really all that good, so Michigan winning the game, arguably one of the best games of the year, didn't mean all that much.
I don't know. Ohio State, I mean, I said Penn State was the most unserious team in college football. I think Ohio State might be in the top 5.
Your boy Maserati Marv has to lay out to make that play.
What do you mean he's my boy, Maserati Marv?
He's your boy.
All right, moving on to number 4. I mean, maybe the greatest field goal I've ever seen. Harrison Mevis, 61 yards to beat Kansas State. I mean, this is a Missouri team. And we're going to talk about them a little bit later. We talk about their matchup against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. But this kick to upset a ranked team at home in a classic Midwest battle, so impressive. I mean, I can't get enough of it.
Incredible.
Kickers are people too.
Missouri keeps momentum, finds himself in the top 10 this year. But moving on to our number 3 play of the college football season. Stanford works its way back all the way down from 29-0 at the half. Alec Manor, an unbelievable catch over one of the best players in the entire country, and Travis Hunter. I think that we talked about that play
we talked
on one
about
of our
that a couple
shows.
months ago. Travis Hunter, I want to say, played like 125 snaps in this game.
I don't know how he does it.
On both offense and defense. I don't know how he did it. Another thing I don't know how someone did was this Keon Coleman catch. I mean, I watched this with my own eyes down in Tallahassee.
I did too, please.
And seeing it from way up top of the stadium, like, whoa, how did he do that?
Keon Coleman, objectively, a very good football player. Might not be the first wide receiver taken this year because of your guy, Maserati Marv, but
my guy, Maserati. Why is he my
still an
guy,
incredible
Maserati
receiver.
Marv?
Any other year is probably the number 1 receiver taken in the draft. So our number 1 play of the college football season. Cover your eyes if you don't like Alabama. It brings me no pleasure to talk about this play, but Jalen Milroe, at the death against Auburn, the nightmare at Jordan Hare, they're calling it, finds Isaiah Bond in the back of the end zone. Alabama somehow wins this game against an Auburn team that finished the season 6-6. Truly sick stuff because I was excited. I was excited to see the Alabama Crimson Tide fall. I was excited to see career politician Nick Saban miss his shot at the college football playoff, even if he complained about it. But a sad play for me.
I mean, I love the what was it? The nightmare at Jordan Hare?
The nightmare at Jordan Hare. Are you familiar with the prayer at Jordan Hare?
That would be the Chris. Would that be the Chris?
That was not. No, that was the game. That was back same year. It was the game before against Georgia. Nick Marshall was their quarterback.
Yes.
Chucked up a prayer, hence the Jordan
I
Hare.
love when you get names that were like, I think about the 1991 Ryder Cup, the War on the Shore.
Nick Marshall, CFL legend.
Do you have any other, rhyming names of events that
I
you're a
don't
big
off
fan?
the top of my head, but that was an incredible season from Auburn.
I love those things. All right, We teased it a little bit earlier. The Heisman was announced this weekend. Jaden Daniels, your 2023 Heisman winner. And we had Dan Shalom down in New York City to take in all the action. He's got a full report from the Big Apple.
With the bright lights shining down on Times Square, it was time for a Heisman winner to be named 3 subway stops away at the Lincoln Center. Jaden Daniels joined 86 other winners, beating out Washington's Michael Penix by just over 200 votes, the closest margin since 2018. Daniels had 503 first-place tallies and was in the top 4 for 90% of voters' ballots. Now, for Daniels, he was trying all season to achieve his goals, and he did just that. When he heard his name, he could not believe it. His head coach, Brian Kelly, couldn't have been more proud of how he led the team all season long.
That was a different type of feeling that I had. Everything that I worked for in my life, everything I overcame, goals I set for myself, now to see it come true, it was like a big sigh of relief, but, I still got to keep working. I still got more stuff to accomplish.
He got knocked down, essentially taken out of the Alabama game, was in a concussion protocol. In many instances in my career, quarterbacks don't come back from that and take time. He comes back with one of the most exciting and historic games the next week against a rival in Florida.
Daniels joins former Heisman winner Johnny Manziel as the only player from the SEC to pass for 3,500 yards and rush for 1,000 in a single season. What's next for Daniels? He could play in the bowl game against Wisconsin, which LSU has coming up in a couple of weeks. If not, the next time his name will be heard will be in the NFL Draft in April. From Times Square, Dan Chow, Citrus TV.
Jaden Daniels, Heisman. I mean, what a season by this guy. Let's look at the numbers.
Let's do it.
Over 3,800 passing
yards.
Pretty good. A 40-4 touchdown to interception ratio.
What's the math? Touchdown interception ratio. What is that?
I don't know.
Produce?
He also ran.
10-1.
He also
Okay.
ran for. Yeah, that would be 10-1. That's pretty simple math. He also ran for over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns as well. The vote was pretty close with Michael Penix. I think just the numbers with Daniels wore out, even though the overall team season that Penix had. I think if his numbers were a little bit stronger, I think Penix would have won.
Yeah, it's close. I think we haven't really talked about Jaden Daniels as much because of how bad his defense has been for LSU, but I mean, one of the historically great seasons by a quarterback. Anytime you think about LSU quarterbacks having a great season, the name's getting thrown around with Joe Burrow's season. I think Burrow's was a little bit better.
Did you see LSU released an official video of Joe Burrow congratulating Jaden Daniels at like 2 o'clock on Saturday?
I did not see that. That's good
7
stuff.
hours before the announcement.
Really?
Like calling
Little early on that one.
welcome to the club.
Anytime you're getting mentioned in the same breath as Joe Burrow in that historic season, that 2019 LSU team, but the main thing that was just so cool to me about LSU and about Jaden Daniels was where he came from. And you can say the same about Michael Penix and the same thing about Bo Nix, but Jaden Daniels last year at Arizona State, 10 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. He transfers to LSU the same year with Brian Kelly. They spend 2 years together.
You're saying Brian Kelly is the
I
reason
never
Jaden
said that.
Daniels-
You're putting words in my mouth.
That is what you just said.
It's objectively a fact that they transferred. Jaden Daniels transferred to LSU. Brian Kelly came as well. Brian Kelly's a good offensive mind. At the end of the day, you can have your thoughts about him. Still a good offensive mind.
And a good accent.
He does. He does have a good Southern accent. Jaden Daniels was fantastic, though, all season long. And just to see his development over the course of the last 2 years, this is the take that I wanted to get off, though. I think if LSU's defense is better, and like I said, they were awful, gave up 45 points to FSU, 55 to Ole Miss, and 42 to Alabama. One of the worst defenses in all of Power 5. If they were better, if LSU's one loss, plays in the SEC championship game, wins the Heisman, makes the college football playoff, I think we're talking about him for the number 1 overall pick. And we're not. He still might be.
Number 1 overall pick.
I think so. Like you look back to Joe Burrow's season in 2019.
Williams?
People are talking about. I don't agree with this. I'm just saying people are starting to throw Drake Mays around in the number 1 overall conversation. I think Jaden Daniels will be a top 10 pick this year. I think he should be. He certainly has the talent. Shades of Lamar Jackson, of course, with the running ability as well. But I think a lot of the talk, a lot of the hype around guys is dependent on how successful their teams are. You talked about Penix. I don't think you can rope in the two guys, their success levels as individuals for the Heisman Trophy with our team success. I think that's a little bit unfair, wouldn't you say?
I guess so. I guess, is that the case with every college football award, do you think?
I think it is a little bit, but I just think because of Jaden Daniels' individual success this season, obviously deserved the Heisman, but I think the hype would even be a little bit more if LSU had done better. But back to the overall point of how much Daniels has improved, the two other quarterbacks who were up for the award were incredible all season too, and came from situations where it was kind of seemed like they were left for dead. Bo Nix at Auburn, a lot of expectations for him, never really panned out. He spent 3 years there. Michael Penix spent 4 years in Indiana. He got benched in his last year there. Yeah. It was not good, but they both transfer with new head coaches. We talked about it. Daniels came over with Brian Kelly. They spend 2 years together. Bo Nix comes over with Dan Lanning to Oregon. They spend 2 years together. Now he's in the Heisman conversation. Michael Penix comes with Kalen DeBoer. Now he's in the Heisman conversation. So it's the new
Williams
era.
Goes with Lincoln Riley to
Exactly,
USC.
right? It's the new era of college football, right? With the NIL, the transfer portal, everything. But I think we're going to start seeing this a lot more with these coaches getting their guys when they take head coaching jobs, finding the stars in the portal at these big-time programs, and instantly vaulting these guys into Heisman conversation.
Mark it down, folks. Next year's Heisman winner will be someone who transferred, maybe this offseason, maybe last offseason.
Kyle McCord to Syracuse.
Okay, and with that, we will take it to another break here on No Pulp. I don't think Kyle McCord is coming to Syracuse. Kyle McCord's old team, Ohio State, playing in the New Year's Six Bowl, the Cotton Bowl against Missouri. We'll preview the other 4 New Year's Six Bowls that aren't part of the playoff coming up right here on No Pulp.
They said a bottle was just a bottle. That no one would ever notice me. But I knew I could be more. That one day, I would make people smile.
Here's your check.
Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to No Pulp. He's still Ethan Frank. I'm still Braden Reed.
No, I changed my name.
You did. What's your name now? Aton?
That's actually to be.
It's a secret. It's confidential. Maybe you'll tell us later. Okay, great. We talked a lot about top 10 plays of the year, Heisman candidate. We've talked a lot about the 4 teams that are going to be playing in the college football playoff in those New Year's Six Bowls. But what about the other New Year's Six Bowls? There's still 4 bowl games played on around New Year's Day, and they still matter. I just want to say something before we get into them.
Okay.
I hate this narrative. I hate this kind of idea that has fallen over college football. It feels like these bowl games don't mean anything anymore, and it's honestly sad. You see guys opting out, going to the NFL draft. It's not the same anymore. You think back to like some of those iconic New Year's Six Bowls, right? The Rose Bowl was a national championship. That's the only one that comes to my mind. But all these players are leaving now, and it stinks. Like, we'll get into some of these games, and the best players aren't even there. It's changing the spread. The games are going to look completely different. I'm upset about it, but we'll get into the games. We'll start with the Orange Bowl. Number 5 Florida State just missed out on the playoff. I know we're unhappy about it.
Too soon.
Taking on number 6 Georgia, who was the number 1 team in all the land for a long time. Georgia 14-point favorites in this game. Ethan, where are you leaning?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not as worked up as you about the fact that these bowl games don't really matter. All that matters to me is the playoff and who's playing for a national championship.
Come on.
You can call me heartless. You can call me whatever you want. That's just how I feel. How do I feel in this game? I feel like Florida State is going to come out with a lot more fight and a lot more energy. I mean, the question, how much do each of these teams really care about this game?
That was my point. That was my entire point. I just spent a minute.
You said, you think they should care. I say, I don't think either of them will really care too deeply.
No. I'm not really saying they should care. I don't blame the guys. Like Brock Bowers, dude, go to the NFL. You're going to be the first tight end taken. You're going to be the best tight end in the NFL in 5 years. I don't blame it.
Well,
it's just
you can't have
sad.
it both ways. You can't tell the guy to go to the NFL and then be worked up.
No. I'm not saying that they should come back. I just missed the days where these bowls really did matter. That's all. I'm not making a statement or a take one way or the other.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you were saying. I guess my question is, does Florida State declare themselves national champions if they win the Orange Bowl over
UCF in
Georgia?
2017? I think that's fair. I think Liberty also has a case too. They're an undefeated conference champion.
Okay, that may be taking it a little too far.
Maybe a little too far.
We'll talk about Liberty in a little bit. Mention the Cotton Bowl a couple of times. Ohio State may be an unserious team versus Missouri, who I actually think is a very serious team under Eli Drinkwitz, one of the best young coaches in all of college football. Only 40 years old. Would not be surprised if he jumps up another level in terms of head coaching job. Having the Tigers as a top 10 team, really impressive. What are you looking for in the Cotton Bowl?
Well, it's a top 10 team in Missouri that's favored by 2.5 points against Ohio State.
Yeah,
and
who's played quarterback for
I
the
was
Buckeyes?
just going to say, like we've been talking about, no Kyle McCord, no Maserati Marv, your boy, no Julian Fleming, who's also entered the transfer portal. Who's going to start at quarterback and who is he going to throw the ball to in this game? Emeka Egbuka cannot do everything for this Ohio State offense.
Is he going to play?
I think so. I think he's supposed to play. I haven't seen otherwise, so I hope he does. Otherwise, they'll have you out there trotting out to play
They're
some
gonna
wide
play
receiver.
me.
You got some eligibility left. The only losses for Mizzou this year, like you were talking about, to LSU, to Georgia. They jumped from going 6-7 a year ago. It doesn't feel like enough people are talking about how good Mizzou is this year. We talked about it. It's a little bit of a down year for the SEC, but Mizzou still making noise. 10-2, 442 yards per game. Truly incredible stuff from them. Tigers running back Cody Schrader just 1 yard short of the 1,500-yard mark. Great stuff for them. He's carried this Missouri team all year long. Anything else?
Well,
Ohio
we
State,
saw how
Missouri.
good the kicker they have in Harrison Mevis.
He's got a leg. He's got a leg. A Jake Elliott kind of leg.
And
Brandon Aubrey kind of
and
leg.
if he can use that leg in a critical moment, this could change the game.
It absolutely could. Only a field goal spread, so it could cover the spread if you decide to bet on it. We'll move now to the Peach Bowl. I am not excited
Do you
at all.
like peaches, first of all?
I love peaches. I love all kind of peaches, nectarines, tangerines. What are those called? Oranges?
Yeah,
Citrus.
that'd
Citrus
be a
kind of
different
fruit.
fruit.
Perfect. Okay. Well, it's the Orange Bowl. Or the Peach Bowl, excuse me. It's not the Orange Bowl.
Sorry, you're getting your fruits confused.
All right.
Next, we're going to be talking about the Grapefruit Bowl.
I'm going to let you go here. It's number 10, Penn State University.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
favored by 3.5 against Lane
That
Kiffin's
is the most ridiculous
Ole Miss.
line
Take
I've
it away.
ever heard.
Take it away.
That
You
is
don't like
the
Penn
most
State.
ridiculous line I've ever heard. Penn State is, as I said before, the most unserious, fluffy program in all of college football.
As fluffy as Coda?
No, Coda just got a haircut. so not that fluffy right now. But when you think about Ole Miss, and I know, I just keep having to eat my words here that I said the SEC wasn't that good, but I think the Big Ten was worse.
We love just immediately backtracking on takes. That's what we do around here.
So I'm going to backtrack on that, and I think Ole Miss is going to absolutely roll on Penn State. I don't care that this, I see a graphic that this is the 5th time in 7 years Penn State has made a New Year's Six Bowl, and they happen to be 3-1 in those games. I don't care. Lane Kiffin, I'm rolling with you. I'm rolling with the Rebels. Ole Miss is going to beat Penn State by, I'll say it, 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns, 14 points? That's insane. I think Penn State wins this game. I'll say this.
Ole Miss money line, free money.
Lock it up. This has turned into a Beat the Bucky episode. I like Drew Eller a lot. I think this is an NFL quarterback. He has been fantastic for them all year long. Penn State's defense does not get enough credit either. Shut out Michigan State, who's not a good team, in the regular season finale for Penn State. The 3rd best scoring defense in the entire country. Penn State is good. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum. They cannot get over the hump. They cannot beat the Ohio State, the Michigans of the world. James Franklin, I will agree with you, is a little bit on fraud watch in terms of getting this team into a serious conversation for the playoff. Ole Miss is a good team, though. Lane Kiffin just continues to do it. The 21st scoring offense in the entire country. We've been talking about transfer quarterbacks. Jackson Dart, tossed aside from USC. They said, you did a great job for us that freshman year. We're taking Caleb Williams. You got to hit the road. You got to feel for the guy. He's been good for them this year, as you see up there. A 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Neither of these guys fill up the stat sheet, but they manage the game. Allard is still developing a little bit. I like what I've seen from both of these guys. I think it'll be a good game. I do think Penn State wins, though. 14-point Ole Miss
All right,
win
let's
is
shake
insane.
that right. What are we putting on this? Ole Miss versus Penn State.
You want to just go straight up, Penn State?
Yeah, I got Ole Miss.
You got to grow. One loser has to grow a mustache. I'll let Jack Gordon, who we'll see in a minute.
I don't know if I can do that, but I guess I'll put
You
it
don't
on.
feel that-
All right, deal. So next time you see me on No Pulp, Braden will have a mustache. So there's one more New Year's Six Bowl to get to. That would be the Fiesta Bowl. And I know, Braden, you're a big fan of Fiestas and everything they have to offer.
Fiestas,
And,
all of them.
As a former Arizona native, this bowl being played in my former home state, I have a lot of respect for it, but unfortunately not this year because Oregon is probably going to absolutely roll Liberty.
Whoa. The undefeated Flames?
Yes.
You think they're going to roll them?
Yes.
Just like that?
I do. By 20 plus.
A lot of respect for Bo Nix playing in this game, by the way, but like you said, 16 points. Who do you think wins by more, Oregon or Ole Miss over Penn State?
I just said Oregon was going to win by 20 plus, and I said Ole Miss was going to win by 14.
All right. Well, I'll say this. I do respect Bo Nix staying to play in this game. I know I've been talking about it a lot, but he's been so fantastic all year long. He's 23 years old. He has 50-plus starts, but he's hanging around. He's going to be a first-round NFL quarterback. He was great for them all year long. Heisman finalist, like we talked about, but you got to talk about Liberty too. This is one of the best offenses in the entire country. Nobody, and I mean nobody, runs the ball as well as Liberty. The schedule was absolutely fluffy, but over 300 rushing yards per game for the Flames. That is incredible. 2 1,000-yard rushers in Quentin Cooley and Caden Salter. Very fluffy, undefeated schedule, but you can't argue with wins and losses. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't, and the Flames haven't lost a game. 514 yards of offense per game. Not as good as Oregon, who's doing it against better competition, so it'll be interesting to see. But you can't argue with almost 41 points per game.
No, I will not argue with those numbers, but I do think, this is an Oregon team that has only had a stumble against one team this year, Washington. And I don't think Liberty is Washington, even though they both may be undefeated. They both may put up a lot of points, and they both may be really impressive offenses. I just don't see it.
Let me ask you this. One more question before we get out of here and go to break. More fluffy, Penn State or Liberty?
Penn State.
Penn State. Wow. Liberty with one of the easiest schedules in the entire country, just walks in, wins the AAC.
But nobody has expectations for them. People have expectations for Penn State.
Relatively, you think Penn State a little more fluffy?
Significantly more fluffy.
Fair enough. All right, that's all we've got for the rest of the New Year's Six Bowls. That was a lot of fun, but we're going to even have more fun. Jack Gordon will join us in the next segment. We're going to talk about some bowl games that a lot of people might not know about. We'll be right back here on No Pulp.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
If you're buzzed and doing this, to make yourself feel okay to drive,
ZWX.
you're not okay to drive.
YGKLVW. Regular you.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Ethan Frank.
We are still here.
Braden Reed. Miles Teller? Oh, no, sorry, Jack Gordon. That's Jack Gordon.
That's who it is.
Yeah, a little confusing. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little worried because you guys are having a little too much fun over here. I'm not exactly the most...
What are you, fun police?
I'm not exactly the most serious person in the world, so I can see this going off the rails. But we're gonna keep it.
I will say we are not the most serious people, but we're gonna try to make things a little bit more serious and find you some bowl games that may not be on your radar, but could be really interesting. So, Braden, what's your first under the radar bowl game?
I am starting with the Duke's Mayo Bowl down in Charlotte, North Carolina. This one's hilarious. The content on Twitter is great. They dump mayo on the opposing head coach. I talked to our producer, Liam Griffin, ahead of this show. I said, is there any way, look at this, dump mayo on the coach's head, watch the bucket falls on the poor guy's head. Or maybe that was another year. Anyway, I was asking our producer, Liam Griffin, if we could get some mayo in the building so I could dump it on Ethan Frank's head. Unfortunately, I'm not able to. It'll be 8-4 UNC, taking on 8-4 West Virginia. West Virginia are favored by 3 in this game. Drake May probably not going to play in this game. Very sad. I like mayo. Do you guys like mayo? You guys like mayo?
Yeah, I like mayo. Sandwich, not all over my head. We need a year where Alabama is, an 8-4 team like this,
right?
And then they win.
Ridiculous
because
bowl.
Just imagine Nick Saban getting mayo dumped on him. Who would not be happy about it?
Who would be the best coach to get mayo?
Nick Saban.
I think it's got to be Saban.
I think Dabo Swinney.
Dabo would play into it too much. You need a coach that
too
hates
much.
it, and Saban would hate it.
Yes. He doesn't like anything fun, right?
Jack, what's your first
You know who does like fun things? ReliaQuest, the company that keeps you nice and secure. They're hosting a bowl game this year. LSU and Wisconsin. I'm most excited for that because of its NFL draft implication. You talked a lot about Jaden Daniels, and he may or may not play. I think there's a decent chance he does. His stock is on the rise right now. You already talked about his numbers. They're absolutely absurd. But he has a chance to insert himself into the top 10 in the NFL draft, maybe even the top 5. And Malik Neighbors does too, as the second wide receiver taken, maybe even the first over Marvin Harrison Jr. Your boy.
I've got a question.
Apparently my boy.
Maserati Marv. I got a question for you. What is Daniels going to gain out of playing this game? Like, is he really going to improve his position that much again playing against Wisconsin in the Relia Quest Bowl?
Don't make fun of Relia Quest.
He's trying to make his draft position safe and secure.
I think he's going to be a top.
Good.
That was good. That was
no,
good.
Listen,
I like
Brayton, right now I think he's kind of in the middle of the Penix, Nix, Daniels group where he could solidify himself as the third after Williams and May, and I genuinely think that could end up being in the top 5. You see how needy teams get for quarterbacks once draft time rolls around. If he has a big night on a national stage, he'd get up there.
Yeah.
But still, like,
I'm sorry, Braden. I really respect what you have to say, but we're going to move on to my first bowl game. You've had your time to speak. Now it's my turn. Let's go with the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. James Madison and Air Force. And, there may not be a better bowl with sponsor for this. Do you want to tell everyone what Lockheed Martin does?
It's your bowl. You tell the people.
Okay.
You're just a big fan of private military contracts?
I mean, could it match up better with the Armed Forces
No
Bowl?
better example of the military whatever complex than Ethan Frank.
I've never heard a better comparison than peanut butter and jelly. I mean, you think about James Madison. How is this team going to play without Kurt Cignetti, who has since moved on to Indiana? You think about a guy like Bob Chesney, who is being talked about a lot up here in Syracuse as a potential new head coach for the Orange. How do the Dukes look in their first game without the head coach that led them to one of the best seasons, if not the best season in program history as an FBS school? Air Force, coming into this game, has lost 4 in a row after starting the year 8-0 and being ranked in the top 25 at one point. I am really interested because there are a lot of questions on both sides of this matchup.
All right, real quick question for you guys. We're talking Lockheed Martin. We're talking Armed Forces. Favorite branch of the military, go.
Marines, obviously.
Navy.
Navy. Good man.
Yeah,
Top Gun fan. I like that.
Top
I
Gun,
like that.
Top Gun.
All right, we'll move on to my second bowl. Sorry.
Top Gun?
Anyway, my second favorite bowl that people aren't talking about a whole lot. You'll like this. You're a New England guy. Kind of. New York, close enough. You're a Boston sports fan. The Wasabi Fenway Bowl. Now, I want to start by asking this. Wasabi, right? What are you thinking?
I don't eat
Sushi.
it, but one time when I was younger, I shoved it in my sister's mouth and she hated it.
Sushi,
got really mad.
Japanese food, Asian food. No, it's none of those things. It's a business solutions company. Where the heck they got the name Wasabi for a company like this, I have no idea, but you need financing help with your business, small or large. Wasabi could help you out. It'll be SMU, it'll be BC. This is a good Mustangs team. Is that SMU the Mustangs?
Yes, they are.
They are. Number 24,
Good
SMU, taking on 11-2, taking on BC. SMU favored by 10.5. These are both going to be ACC teams next year, so we're getting a preview of what that matchup will look like for a year to come. SMU has ripped off 9 straight after a 2-2 start to their season. Cruised past Tulane in the AAC title game last week. 12th in total offense too, 11th in total defense. Not a lot of people talking about SMU, but they are a darn good team.
I mean, this is a future ACC matchup. I actually think it's fun in that way. SMU didn't really have a tough schedule this year. This will be one of the more real teams they played. They did beat Tulane at the end of the season, which was nice, but not much Power 5 competition. We'll see what they do against BC.
We'll see. Jack?
Yeah, staying in the ACC, Virginia Tech, they're playing Tulane that I just mentioned that
love Tulane around
lost to SMU. In the Military Bowl, another common topic that we're talking about. We're staying militaristic here on No Pulp.
That'll work.
Of course it is.
We should have brought Adam Silver on the show.
Anyway, I'm excited about this one because Virginia Tech, they're back. Brent Pry has led this group to its second bowl game in 3 years, his first in his 2 years with the Hokies. Going up against the Michael Pratt-led Tulane squad, another quarterback
Any relation
that
to Chris?
hasn't. I don't
Jermaine?
know. Possibly. That's possible. Yeah. Thanks, Ethan. No, I think it's a great opportunity for Michael Pratt to improve his draft position because he's also stuck in a weird quarterback group where guys like Riley Leonard and Tyler Van Dyke, Shedeur Sanders, they're probably all going back to school. So he might be the one that ends up after those first-round guys, maybe an opportunity to move into the third round, second round or so.
Something to watch, definitely. My last bowl game that's a little under the radar, the Valero Alamo Bowl. And I say this because the Alamo Dome is one of the coolest venues in all of sports. You think about the events played there. How about the 2018 Final Four when Villanova took down Michigan in the championship game? They played Saints home games there during Hurricane Katrina. They've held a lot of Royal Rumbles there. The 1999 NBA Finals was held there. Paul McCartney has performed there. Just so many good things happen at the Alamo Dome, and maybe little Charles Barkley mix up Alamo with a la mode, and you end up with some ice cream. What is better than that? But if you look at the coaches in this game, Arizona and Oklahoma, 2 top 15 teams, Jed Fish, Brent Venables, really good jobs. And this will also, like we were talking about with SMU and BC, will be a conference matchup in the Big 12 next year.
No Dylan Gabriel, transfer to Oregon. He's gone for the Sooners. Very sad, like we've been talking about. Wish he was playing in this game for Oklahoma.
I'm excited, though, because they got Jackson Arnold, 5-star, 10th in his class last year, waiting to come back. It'll nice to see him start.
So, really interesting. 6 games there for you to pick from, maybe have a little wager on, or just watch and enjoy with friends and family. We got just a little bit of time left here on No Pulp. We're making our predictions for the college football playoff. Jack, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, fellas.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
You quit smoking and thought, that's that. But here's the thing about lung cancer. By the time you see the symptoms, it could be too late. But now, there's a new scan that can detect lung cancer early, when it's more curable. If you smoked, get scanned. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome back once again to the CitrusTV studios. It's No Pulp, Ethan, Frank, and Braden Reed. We're talking the college football playoff, as if we haven't talked about enough college football tonight. The Rose Bowl, the first national semifinal, number 1 Michigan, number 4 Alabama in the Rose Bowl. We talked about these teams individually and how they got here. Where does your head go?
I'll just give it to you. I'm leaning Michigan. I'm leaning Michigan in this one, 24-17. We talked about it in the beginning of the show with how good Michigan's been all season long. They just dominate along the line of scrimmage. They lost Zach Zinter in that game against Ohio State. They're going to miss him, and they were probably going to need him, but this Michigan offensive line is still one of the best in the entire country. Alabama just continues to pump out defensive linemen, defensive ends, pass rushers, like it's their job. I guess it is their job as one of the best college football teams in the country, but you go from Will Anderson to Dallas Turner, who's been incredible for the Crimson Tide all season long. The main thing with this, though, it feels like we're not going to get great quarterback in this quarterback play in this game. J.J. McCarthy hasn't been great all year long. Jalen Milroe hasn't been great all year long. The Alabama defense is good. I think Michigan does just enough. Blake Corum, they'll lean on him heavy in this game to get the win, 24-17.
So I thought you were going to go with Alabama. And
Why?
Because I think you respect Texas so much in their win over Alabama that you were going to go with Alabama.
I don't let my personal biases get into my journalistic
I'm going with Michigan. I mean, like, I just wrote, like, it's time. It's time, Jim, for you to take this team and bring them to the championship game. You know, we saw the loss to Georgia 2 years ago. Okay, that was excused. That was the best team in the country. The loss to TCU last year, that was inexcusable.
Definitely.
This is the year for Michigan to get it done, and I do think they get it done. Being only a 1.5-point favorite against Alabama, not okay. I do think it is a little worrisome how they reacted to Alabama getting in and not Florida State.
I don't blame it at all. I would have reacted the same way. I don't think anybody wants to see Alabama right now.
All right. The second semifinal, the All-State Sugar Bowl, number 2 Washington, number 3 Texas. The Longhorns, 4.5-point favorites. I think I know where this is going.
I think I win. I think they cover. Hook 'em horns, baby. I think Texas heads to the national championship. They're first in the college football playoff era. Like you said, Steve Sarkisian has just taken this team and completely transformed them into a serious team, right? We've all been talking about, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand when, Sam Ehlinger was there playing quarterback for Texas, gets up there after, I think it was the Cotton Bowl, and says, Longhorn Nation, we're back. And they were most definitively not back. But Texas just might be. I'm not ready to say completely yet. I think they need to go a little bit further for that B word to get thrown around. Now we get into the good quarterback play, though. Michael Penix, Quinn Ewers, 2 of the best in the entire country. Ewers hasn't quite lived up to the hype yet, but he's playing his best ball of the season. So is this entire team. Texas is playing their best football of the entire team right now. They're clicking on the offensive side. Washington defense is good. I think they'll be able to handle Texas, but I still think Longhorns win this one, 38-31. They're doing way too many things right on the offensive side right now where I don't think they win this game.
So, when I look at this game, I think it's going to be close. And when I see it's going to be close, I understand Washington has a huge disadvantage when it comes to the travel.
Sure.
That it's a lot easier for Texas to get from Austin to New Orleans than it is from Seattle to New Orleans. I just don't think Washington cares. I like the Huskies in this game. I definitely think they will cover 4.5. And I mean, plus 150 on the money line to win this game outright, I think is really, really good value.
I think it's hard to disagree.
And if it's a close game, then I lean Washington.
Does it. Washington does it when it matters most. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, the national championship. You've got Texas versus Michigan.
I do.
I've got Washington versus Michigan. Your thoughts?
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't even know if you're going to be surprised at this point. I don't know if anybody's going to be surprised at this point. I've got Texas winning the national championship. I was on the beginning of the season. I bet I'm going to make the playoff. I have a wager on Michigan to win the entire college football playoff, but I don't think it happens. I think Texas wins this game. Like I said, it's kind of an unstoppable force, immovable object thing right now. The best defense in the entire country versus one of the best offenses in the entire country. And you watch that Big 12 championship game, Texas could not be stopped on the offensive side. Quinn Ewers was getting everything that he wanted. They had it working on the ground as well. A lot of movement in that offense. I think it's too much for this Michigan defense. I think it'll be close. All of these games are going to be close. The four best teams in the country. This game is going to be one of the trenches, but I think Texas ultimately gets it done here.
All right. Washington, Michigan. It's time. It's time for Jim to lead Michigan to the promised land. He can ride back to the NFL and never have to worry about
any particular team you want him to go to?
And never worry about the NCAA ever again. If he was ever going to leave Michigan, now is the time.
You think so? After he wins a national title, he rides off into the sunset like Peyton Manning.
I think he does. I got a close personal associate who plays for Michigan, same age as us. He was the punt returner against Ohio State.
Okay.
Senior leadership experience. No, I'm all in on Michigan getting this done. It doesn't have to be pretty. I just think Michigan has what it takes to get it done no matter who they're playing. I know I said I don't think the Big Ten is, maybe as good as it's made out to be. And we'll find out that in bowl season with Penn State and Ole Miss and Ohio State and Missouri. I just think Michigan has the experience it needed the last 2 years. And now with the ego boost of Harbaugh being back and being the #1 team and proving everyone wrong while he was suspended, I think it's Michigan's time.
I'll say this. If it's Michigan versus Washington, I also like Michigan. I think in terms of if I had to pick four, I think the two most likely to win the national championship, it goes Texas and it goes Michigan. We've talked about it the entire show. Michigan just so dominant up front on the offensive and the defensive side. Washington wins close games. Did you give a score? Do you think this game will be close?
I think it would. I actually think it will be more like a 10-point game.
Really?
I think if it's close, then as I said, that favors Washington. I just think Michigan is overall too stingy.
I think Michigan would have their way with Washington in the national championship game. Like more, like by 2 touchdowns probably.
By 2 touchdowns?
I think so.
Wow, that's pretty bold. I mean, if anyone, I think it's pretty ridiculous to come on the show and say a team would win by 2 touchdowns in a really important bowl game. All right. Our final words here on No Pulp tonight. With this being the last year of the 14 playoff, I thought it'd be a good time to reflect on all the great games and moments this has given us. From teams not getting in, controversial calls, all-time moments, the 14 playoff has been exhilarating, painful, and joyful all at the same time. So that's why I'm making the plea that the playoff should not be expanding to 12 teams. Because without the discourse that we've had over the past week, what do? We, the media, and the fans to an extent, are all part of the content business. And playoff decisions where an undefeated conference champion gets left out is great for our business because it means we don't have to work to find things to talk about. They're served on a platter for us. Not only that, how decentivized is the regular season? College football is so great because every week the pressure is so high for these top teams to win that it gives us all-time moments, great games, and infamous decisions because that is what college football is all about. Pressure on a week-to-week basis. The 14 playoff did a lot for college football. It created rivalries, moments, elation, and heartbreak. So long, the days of every single game and moment in the regular season mattering. The grass, not always greener on the other side.
It's good stuff, Ethan. I might even agree for once. Now, for my final word this week, and the final word of the calendar year for No Pulp, I'm moving a bit football adjacent, if you will. Now, if you've been watching the primetime ESPN game throughout this season or are chronically online like Ethan and myself are, you've probably seen and heard about Ben Herbstreit. And no, it's not analyst Kirk Herbstreit's son, but in some ways, actually, maybe he is. Ben's a recently turned 10-year-old golden retriever who's been traveling with Kirk around the country this year. He flies on the plane with Kirk, stays in the hotel room, and even has been in the booth with Chris Fowler and Herb Street during the games. Wherever Kirk goes, Ben goes. The two have taken the internet ablaze throughout the season with a wholesome, loving twist to a sport that's all about its analysis and drama. It's really just a breath of fresh air, a genuine love between Kirk and Ben, and yes, as the cliche goes, a dog is a man's best friend. Ben is one of now 4 golden retrievers in the Herb Street family, and as Kirk puts it, is the Mufasa, the middle linebacker, the brains of the operation in the Herb Street household. He's a calming presence in the hectic life of Kirk, who's talked about it, who juggles Thursday night football, college game day, and the primetime ESPN game all in a 3-day span. He's met Georgia's mascot Ugga, gets pet by almost every fan he meets. It's truly great stuff. Hangs out with Kirk down on the field pregame. The love between the two is clearly so pure, so wholesome. If you haven't felt that love with a pet yourself, I hope that you do one day, because it's one of the best feelings in the entire world. I'll leave you with this quote from 18th century King Frederick the Great of Prussia. He said, "The only absolute and best friend a man has in this selfish world, the only one that will not betray him or deny him, is his dog." And Ethan, it couldn't be put any better.
No, I mean, you think about Ben. I mean, he's that green dot.
We send each other Ben's tweets all the time.
Yeah.
Kirk puts out a ton of content.
You know, Jack's involved with that too.
He is.
Jack
He is our
loves
good
Ben.
friend. If you haven't seen Kirk Herbstreet's Twitter with all the Ben content, go there, do yourself a favor, scroll a little bit. It's truly awesome.
Ben is one of the best things, if not the best thing, that has happened in all of college football this year. And the only thing that could be better is if Ole Miss goes out and beats Penn State by 2 touchdowns. Thank you very much for tuning into this edition of No Pulp. For Braden Reed, I'm Ethan Frank, and the entire producer crew, thanks for sticking with us, and enjoy bowl season.